Sam Carchidi is the Flyers beat writer for the Inquirer and the Daily News, Philly.com. And he will be at Preps Pizza on the boardwalk in Ocean City from 6 to 9:30 with Flyers in-house PA Lou Nolan, and they will be signing their book called If These Walls Could Talk. And Sam is going to join us now to tell us a little bit more about the book. We'll talk a little Flyers offseason with him as he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sam, welcome back. How are you, pal?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. And tonight you'll be signing autographs for the book, If These Walls Could Talk. And we've had you on in the past to kind of give us a couple of nuggets about the book. But, just the thought of, whenever I was at a playoff game and I thought to myself, I can't imagine hearing a Flyers game without Lou Nolan's voice permeating through that stadium. Like, the thought of him not being there at some point is crazy to me.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing because he's actually the last tie to the original Flyers as far as being there consecutively. There are still some people that work for the Flyers, like Joe Watson, who's in sales, and Bernie Braun is still around, and they were with the Flyers obviously when they broke in 1967, but they weren't there, every single year. Watson went to Colorado, and Bernie Braun went to Toronto, and a couple other places. But Lou has been there continuously since 1967. He's the only person that's been there since the start. Now, he wasn't the PA guy in the beginning. Actually, Gene Hart was for a while, and a couple other people, but he worked in the PR department under Joe Cadillac, the great Joe Cadillac, who worked there for about 40 years. But Lou was under Joe's wing for about 5 years. And in 1972, he took over the PA broadcasting duties, and he's been there ever since. And is probably one of the most recognizable guys at voice anyway. It's one of the most recognizable voices in Philadelphia.
No doubt about it. When you guys sat down with the idea to do this book, it's called If These Walls Could Talk, is there a handful of stories that immediately went to the top of the list?
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that I was curious about was Ed Snyder and his relationship with Ed Snyder, because we've heard all kinds of things about Ed and how he was a control freak, and which is true, but, and I mean that in a good way. But, so his relationship with Ed Snyder, and what was Ed Snyder really like? Behind closed doors, I wanted to find out about that. And Ben had some really interesting things. I mean, he would call down to Lou all the time. Lou was down in the box. And back then, he had a phone there, and Ed wanted an explanation. Why did they call that penalty? And Lou's trying to announce the penalties, and Ed is, all upset from his box upstairs. And so we had a lot of anecdotes about Ed and Lou going back and forth. And of course, Lou's trying to be loyal to his boss, but at the same time, he's got to tell the fans what's going on and who's going to the penalty box. And there were some animated conversations that sometimes Ed would say, Lou, your job is to tell me what's going on. Forget about the referee.
Right.
Forget about talking, because the referee's trying to explain to him. Dave Schultz gets 5 minutes, get a 10-minute misconduct. It's blah blah blah. And so some real comical anecdotes. God rest Ed Snyder. You can say that he was meddling. He was really involved with the team, maybe too much, but he really cared about his Flyers. He really did. And he came by it naturally. I give him a lot of credit. I mean, here was a guy who bled orange and black, and so we do have a full chapter devoted to Ed Snyder and Lou's relationship with him, and I also wanted to find out some things behind the scenes stuff about some of the players, the modern day players, the Paul Giroux, the Jake Voraceks, and the old guys. The older guys, the Schultzes and the Clarks and the Seleskis and the DuPonts, and as I said, he's the only guy that's been there through all of them.
Yes.
We always say it's from Bernie Braun to Ivan Provorov and everybody in between, and Lou's been there for all of them.
We're talking with Sam Carchidi. He, along with legendary PA announcer Lou Nolan, will be signing their book tonight on the Ocean City Boardwalk at Preps Pizza at 10th and the Boardwalk between 6 and 9:30. If you want to stop out there, I would have to assume there's got to be some stuff from the Lindros era and what was going on during that whole time, which is maybe one of the more high-profile times in the franchise's history.
Yeah, we definitely touched on that, and we touched on, his parents and the interference, and it's just interesting, though, from Lou's perspective and what he heard and what he knows, but we tried to balance it out too. We tried to have stories from the old days, the Broad Street Bullies, the '90s, the Eric Lindros years, and the current Flyers too. We didn't want it to be just a book talking about the past. We wanted to have the Konechny's and the Provoros and the Couturiers and Giroux and on and on. So if you're a Flyers fan, I think it's the kind of book that you'll like, because it's not just a history lesson. Going back to what has happened. I think most people know. If you're a Flyers fan, you know what happened. So we try to get Lou's take and the behind the scenes take, and some interesting things that are, some of them aren't even hockey related, like how he had to audition. They were actually building the third deck onto the Spectrum at the time, and Lou Scheinfeld, who was the Flyers vice president back then, wanted Lou's audition, and cranes were gone, and there was all kinds of machinery, and they were literally, I don't know if you remember when they did that at the Spectrum, they added a third deck. They were so popular that they had to add more seating. So Lou is doing his audition, if you will, with all this noise, and Lou yells out, "Can you guys calm it down? Can you turn the noise down? I'm trying to do an audition here." I really appreciate it. And he handled it. And the funny thing is, Lou Scheinfeld says, if you can handle these guys, you can handle anything. Right. And I know you have the voice. So it was a semi-audition, because Lou Scheinfeld kind of knew already and what he could do. But a lot of good stories like that. Some were hockey related, but most of his anecdotes that happened down low on the ice, and visiting players, and who carry on the fans, and that kind of thing. Because Lou, as you know, has the best seat in the house, right by the penalty box.
Yeah, his voice is certainly very, very distinct. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Did you guys touch on how Lou became the public address announcer? Because as we talked about in the beginning, Sam, that he is a voice that I can't imagine Flyers hockey being without. And did you guys touch on the first not to say the first, but the JVR trade? Was that something that any fly on the wall for that time when JVR got traded? Because now he's back.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. I mean, that was more of a Paul Holmgren move. Paul Holmgren, quite frankly, thought that Van Riemsdyk was a little too soft. And I think he misread him as a player, to be honest with you. I think he thought that, he needed somebody that was going to be an aggressive player. And JVR, was not that kind of guy. He's a wide-bodied player, but he wasn't a physical player. And I think Paul Holmgren kind of misread his ability. He's got a great scoring touch around the net, as you know, and he's a 30-goal scorer, and he's going to help this team. I give Paul Holmgren credit because he realized the mistake, and when Ron Hextall went to him and says, "Hey, we want to sign this guy," Holmgren wanted to correct it. What he did, it'll go down as one of the worst trades in Flyers history. Of course, they picked up Luke Schenn, who's probably kicked around 4 or 5 teams since then, and it was, as I said, a mismatch right from the get-go. And if you remember Van Riemsdyk when he was here first, he was actually a very fast skater. And he's not quite as fast now. But if you remember back to the series against Boston and in 2010 and even in 2011, he must have had 5 or 6 breakaways in one game that I remember in 2011. And, I always thought that this guy had all kinds of talent. But he wasn't the guy. He wasn't a physical type player, and we touched on that a little bit in the book. And that wasn't to Holmgren's liking. And I think Holmgren has evolved. The game has evolved since then. And if you have speed and you can get position on people, and you're hard to move, and he is hard to move, you're going to help the team. He's going to help this team a lot. I think he really balances the lines out. My guess is he'll be the second line left winger with Patrick and Voracek on that line, and I think Giroux will stay at left wing. That there's been some talk that he could move back to center, but myself personally, I say if it's not broke, don't fix it. And him and Giroux and Couturier and Konechny, to me, that line was just tremendous. And why you did great. ball. Make me shake my head, but we'll see. They have some options.
Yeah, Sam. We had JVR on about a week or so ago, and Hexie as well, and both of them mentioned Nolan Patrick as a potential line mate there. But the big question always comes back to goal. How do you see the goaltending situation shaking out? Are we going to see a similar situation this year, or is there a wild card in the mix?
Well, the wild card is Carter Hart. I don't think it's a wild card at the beginning of the season, Mike. I think they clearly want him to play the fans. I mean, if he really lights it up in the exhibition games, then you might have a pause to pause. But, I think Hextall, by nature, is a very conservative general manager. And I think he wants him to get his feet wet in the AHL. And I expect Carter Hart to start here in the AHL. But the wild card to me is if he's playing really well and there's an injury at goal for the Flyers, and it's January, I could see him coming up. The other question is who's going to be the backup. I think we're all pretty well set on Brian Elliott being the number one guy. Michael Neubert is an injury waiting to happen. If they can deal him during training camp, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. If another goalie goes down on another team, Neubert certainly has the talent to be a goalie in this league. There's no question, but he is just so injury prone. And I get the impression the Flyers are just have kind of seen enough. So I would not be surprised if they moved him during camp, and Alex Lyon ended up being the backup, and like I said, Carter Hart will be waiting in the wings. But we'll see how it plays out.
All right, Sam, I know you're heading down the shore for the book signing tonight at Preps Pizza on the Boardwalk in Ocean City, 10th Street between 6 and 9:30. He'll be there with the Flyers' legendary PA voice, Lou Nolan. The book is called If These Walls Could Talk, and he gave you just a little glimpse of some of the stories that are involved. You got some beach time that if you need to bring a book down, they'll have copies tonight that you can get autographed, 6 to 9:30 at Preps Pizza on the Boardwalk in Ocean City. Sam, we appreciate it, man. Good luck with the book.
Mike, can't thank you enough.